Hello, I'm Svitek, 360 Creative Coach. And in this episode, I wanted to talk about the amateur versus the professional. Now, okay, you might be thinking, sure, I've done a bunch of those episodes and I've tackled it in various forms. And yes, I have. You are correct. But I think this is a very important topic, right? Because, I think as a content creator, whatever your preferred medium, whether it's music, filmmaking, being a writer, painting, and so on, you ultimately want to do this, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, right? But I believe because you want to be a professional. And so, in order to be a professional, you have to understand what it takes, what are the distinctions to be a professional versus someone who's more of a quote-unquote just an artist, an amateur, or a hobbyist, right? And no disrespect to any of those, right? I think there's people who enjoy art just for the sake of just doing it, and I think that's well and good. But for the people that, if this is like your calling and you really want to make this your profession, then there's things that you have to know about it, right? And so a big kind of distinction in terms of the professional versus just a hobbyist, let's say, is that the professional understands that they have to deliver the project for an audience, right? Quite literally, right? There's people who create wonderful art, but never share it outside of their immediate circle. Of course, that is their prerogative, but by definition, they are not a professional. A professional puts his work out into the world, and how it gets received after that, it's not up to them. It's up to the audience. Furthermore, because of that notion, because by definition they have to put out the work, the professional has to make certain things knowing that they are putting it out into the world, right? So what do I mean by this? This is going to be, I'm sure, to some, a controversial opinion. But I think, I was watching the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League, and it is so overly indulgent. And I understand that some people really wanted that of him, excuse me, and they really enjoyed the movie. But as much as they enjoyed the movie, I still think there's certain things that were just indulgences because Zack Snyder wanted them there versus, that they were good even for the fans who enjoy the movie, right? And I would argue that, you have to ultimately, you can't, like, in that sort of thing, one of the biggest sort of defenses of it by people that I know who enjoy the movie, they say, well, it was his choice and his vision, and of course he could because it was HBO Max, and so he had the time and so forth. And to me, it's like, okay, just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? At the end of the day, for me, as an artist, right, with anything that I do, there's almost like a social contract where, if by putting something out into the world, to me, it means, okay, this is something I believe in, this is worthy, and, there's something to be gained by it, even if it's just for entertainment and enjoyment in that sense. And so, by doing that, I'm not gonna overspend any. I will give you you need to tell a story within a certain amount of time limit. Like you can't just to have something in there just for the sake of it, versus really moving the story along. Like brevity is part of the art form, and I'm not saying that a 4-hour movie can't in theory exist, but it should be the most succinct version of that versus what, in my opinion, as far as the Justice League, it was unnecessarily too long. And I'm merely using Justice League as a jumping off point because it's a cultural touchstone, in my life at least. But it is, a big kind of, for filmmakers, certainly it's something of a good case example for better or worse, right? And when I say that in terms of its entire thing, right? But yeah, you have to kind of know that ultimately it is going to be put in front of an audience. And so, there are norms and conventions that go with any medium, right? Whether it be music, novel writing, filmmaking, and so forth. And if you're going to break those conventions, there better be a very specific reason for doing that, right? I watch plenty of movies that I really enjoy, that other people really enjoy as well, that break convention. But they do so because they also understand the convention and why they're breaking it, right? They're not doing it just for the sake of it's kind of like that stereotypical starting off artist answer you get, whatever, screw the rules. I just want to make what I want to make. And it's like, okay, but then you're not really a professional. You're just doing it for you, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But then don't be upset when people don't like the work, right? So that's why I would want you to consider that if you want to be a professional, I'm not saying you have to placate to the audience, right? For example, Star Wars in some sense. It's not, I think Star Wars in some sense with the last, The Rise of Skywalker specifically almost became like a fan-written film, in order to appease a certain fan base. And I'm not saying that's what has to happen, but you do have to keep the audience in mind that someone is going to have to watch this, read this, listen to it, whatever the case may be. And so by that, you have to keep them in mind, and everything has to be purposeful versus I can do it, so let me just do it, right? So that's what I have for you. And especially in today's day and age, when the barrier to entry to put out a podcast, to put out a YouTube video, to make content is, as low as it's ever been and as easy as it's ever been. It doesn't mean that you should. And that's what I want you to think about. Anyway, thank you for taking the time to tune in. I appreciate you. I'm sure you have thoughts of your own regarding this, so please share them down below in the comment section or hit me up on social media at Bill Svitek. I would be happy to converse with you about this topic further. Likewise, if you think there's people in your life that would want to talk about this subject, then please share this episode with them. I certainly would appreciate it, as I appreciate you, and hope to see you next time.